Hello, happiness abounders, and welcome back. Thank you for joining me on this episode 381 as we dive into our 5-part series all about reconnection, specifically reconnecting with yourself. I think one of the most common ways that we feel unhappiness is when we've kind of lost who we are and we don't really connect with ourselves in the ways that we used to or in a way that makes sense for who we are now. Instead, we just kind of go through the motions, go with the flow, which is fine, but it feels like we're dictated by everyone else's choices for us or decisions and living very reactively instead of proactively. And when we can find a way to reconnect with ourselves, that's when we can really start to discover our true next levels of happiness. So I think it's an important topic, and I'm excited to spend the next 5 episodes talking all about it. So today, although I just very briefly said why, I want to talk about why it's important to reconnect with yourself, especially when you're trying to be happier. Like I just mentioned, I feel like it's pretty common that we just kind of go with how things are and we lose that connection to ourselves. But what about when we're making a conscious effort to be happier in our lives? What does that look like, or why is it important then? Here's what I mean. Let's say maybe you've started listening to this podcast and you're starting to do some of the exercises, do the thought processes and things like that we share here. And you're starting to be like, yeah, I am capable of happiness abound. I'm going to keep on doing this. This is awesome. And I'm starting to feel happier. Well, that's all fantastic. Like, if that's your story, please let me know, because that makes me feel really good. But also, it's one of those things that's like, yeah, you've got a lot of momentum. You're going forward. But if you haven't found a way to reconnect with yourself in the middle of all that, at about 7 to 10 days, you're going to hit a slump. And you're going to kind of go right back to where you feel like you've been, and you'll feel discouraged and everything else. So the reconnection with yourself is pretty much vital if you are on a path to being happier. Because without it, things can kind of backslide. And they may not backslide all the way, but they can start to backslide. And that's because we are in this space where we don't know who we are. We just know we want to be happier. We're not really we know who we are, but do we know who we are? Do you know your values? What do you stand for in your life? Do you know your purpose for being here? When you have those things and you can reconnect with yourself, then happiness moves faster. I'm not saying you won't have hiccups and things like that along the way, but it moves faster than, I don't really know who I am. I just know I want to be happier, so I'm going to start doing these techniques and exercises, because this is what it looks like. Before the happiness exercises, you're not really sure who you are. You've lost that connection to yourself. You start doing the happiness exercises and you start feeling really good, but your brain goes, what? This is a little uncomfortable, and we don't even know who we are right now, and we didn't before, and so we're just going to stop this happiness stuff and go back to, we didn't know who we were before, we weren't connected with ourselves before, but at least we knew the situation. This is new territory, it's uncomfortable, we should stop. And that happens around the 7 to 10 day mark. That happens with everything, not just happiness exercises. It happens with physical exercise as well, right? You start a new resolution or a goal, you're going to eat healthy, you're going to work out, and you last, 5, 7 days, maybe 10, and then it starts to feel kind of real, and your brain goes, ooh, this feels like it's different, and it's changing, and we're challenging ourselves, and I got to keep you safe and comfortable, so let's, see that chocolate cake? Let's go eat that, because we've been so good. And then you don't work out the next morning, and you eat a little less healthy, and you don't work out again, and you're going to go do this, and you decided not to, and suddenly you're kind of right back where you were. Has anybody had that happen to them? Because I know I have. But it's the same thing whether it's a normal goal, or I shouldn't say a normal, but a more traditional, conventional goal, or a happiness goal. And a lot of that comes to that connection, that reconnection with yourself. It is vital. And in so many ways, because when we are uncomfortable, what do? We buffer. Buffer by overeating. We buffer by over binge watching TV. We buffer by playing excessive amounts of video games. We buffer by over drinking. Right? There's so many facets of how we buffer ourselves. But if we have a reconnection to ourselves, we can kind of go, oh, I'm a little overwhelmed right now. And instead of sitting down and watching 10 episodes of TV show, whatever your TV show of choice is, instead of watching 10 episodes of that, I'm actually going to journal instead. Because I need to build this emotional awareness and to reconnect with myself. So I'm going to talk about that throughout these next 5 episodes. We're going to cover the topic of journaling, which is one of my favorites. And I know, you're probably like, I've heard I need to journal, but I hate it. Or I've heard I need to journal, but insert excuse here, right? Whatever that is for you, stay tuned tomorrow, because I think that, well, we all know we should be journaling. We don't, so it's helpful to know why we should and the benefits of it, and kind of break that mold of what we think journaling looks like. So stay tuned as we talk about journaling. We talk about moving our body as a form of reconnection, getting outside, and meditating. So stay tuned this week across these next few episodes to learn all about reconnecting with yourself and really understanding that it's important to reconnect with yourself, especially when starting new habits and routines, because that's something you can lean on when your brain's like, I'm uncomfortable. You can go, no. Remember, we reconnected with ourselves. We know who we are. We know what we're doing. We're moving forward. Gentle reminder, we're going this way. And you can maintain and have a little bit more of that endurance that you may not have been able to have before. That said, knowing who you are and where you want to go is key in that reconnection area. Which brings me to, if you haven't guessed it, my upcoming declarations class. I have a class coming up on June 1st. There is in-person options if you live in the Utah area, as well as online options if you're unable to attend in person. And even if you're interested and you're like, oh, I can't do June 1st, I have a recording. There will be a recording of the class available. And every person who signs up also gets a 20-page resource guide all about declarations. I like to teach on 3 different types of declarations. One is a creative declaration to help you identify who you want to be and where you're going, so that when you are in these reconnection techniques and you're trying to get realigned with yourself, reconnecting, you can have that pure path and direction that you know you need to go to, and you can call on those really hard times. So I like to teach and help you craft a custom declaration for yourself, custom creative declaration. Also, one of my other favorite things to teach is combat declarations, which helps you overcome negative self-talk, helps boost your confidence, etc. And then the last is coping declarations, giving you a phrase to really lean on when it feels like there's not much hope. So I would love for you to attend if you are like, yeah, I totally need to reconnect with myself. I feel like I'm struggling setting up habits and routines. I need something to align me and center me on the way I want to go, and give me a quick call back when I need it. If any of that sounds like something that you would want to do, please go to happinessabound.com, click on courses, and select the Declarations for Happiness class. It is one of my favorite classes to teach. I've said it before, but when I mentor people, after we wrap up our mentoring programs, I send out a survey and I'm like, hey, what was the most beneficial technique that you learned? And hands down, everyone says declarations. So this is one of the most important, one of the most crucial, and really one of my favorite classes to teach. So I'd love for you to join us, whether in person or online, or even after the fact, because it can really add a lot of value in helping you reconnect with yourself. So that said, have a wonderful day. Make sure to find those moments of reconnection, figure out who you are, defining your values, what your purpose is, etc. And tune in for the rest of the week as we talk about these exercises that can help us align and reconnect more frequently. Have a wonderful day, and remember, you are capable of happiness abound.